Hello, I'm Kitty, and this is a video on how to sew the hare. So in your kit you will find a little welcome leaflet. You have an embroidery hoop, you have all the different colour threads that you'll need to complete the kit. There is one other bobbin of thread which isn't on the wire hoop, which is called tester, and you want to use this to do your sampler, which is this. And this will teach you all of the stitches that you'll need for this kit. So if you're a beginner or if you're a bit rusty, go back and watch the sampler video and it will teach you how to do the 4 stitches that you need for this kit, which are backstitch, whipped backstitch, chain stitch and satin stitch. And it also goes through, you know, how to start off your piece, how to finish a piece, how to use the needle threader, all of that kind of handy stuff. But if you don't need reminding of any of that stuff, then no need to do the sampler or watch that video. There's also a needle threader here, 2 needles, one big and one small. Your pattern. So this is digitally printed on linen, so it's not one of those embroidery kits where you wash it off at the end or you trace it or anything. These black lines will stay on forever, so bear that in mind when you're sewing. You want to sew over these black lines because if you don't, then you will be able to see them. And lastly, there is your cheat sheet. So this has a key here, and then over the back it's got the diagram of this project. So this is quite handy to just have with you whilst you're sewing, so you don't have to keep going back and watching this video. This just tells you what each element is and what stitch and what colour, so it's quite useful, hopefully. The only other thing you will need are some scissors. I've got embroidery scissors here, but any scissors will do. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using an embroidery stand, which you definitely don't need, but some people really like to sew with them. They're quite handy for more advanced stitches, but for this kit you really don't need one, and I actually find it harder to sew on these than just having the hoop in my hands, but it's quite handy for videos. So as I said, this kit only uses 4 stitches, and they're all really straightforward. I'll start off by showing you the most straightforward one, which is backstitch. In this kit I use backstitch for the lettering, the little purple circles around these things, the outline of the eye, the swirls on its tummy, and the filling stitch of the hare, which are small individual backstitches, or running stitch as it's sometimes known. I'll start by showing you the lettering. It's very straightforward. Secure your fabric in your hoop, make sure it's quite tight, otherwise it will be harder to sew. So I'm going to look on my cheat sheet. You can see lettering here, and I can see that the colour is plum. I find plum on here, and I take out maybe like 30 or 40 centimetres. The key thing to remember, every element of this piece uses 3 threads, and you can see that they come in 6. So you have to separate them in half before you start. If you forget to do this, you won't have enough thread, so you have to try and remember that. So I think there are probably better ways of doing this, but the way I've always done it is just tapping it down like that until I can see 3 in 3, and then just very gently pull. If you're aggressive with it, it will get a knot. You want to make a knot in one end. The way I make a knot is I just roll it around my finger once and then slide it down and pull. But you can just make a normal knot. Now, because the lettering is quite a delicate bit of the piece, I'm going to choose the small needle. So you just want to start at the end of the line and make a stitch maybe 2 or 3 millimeters long. I'm not very good at measuring that. And then all you do is just go over the lines. Quite a common question people ask is, should I tie off my thread here and start a new one here? My answer would be no, because that's just a huge amount of effort. If they're relatively close together, there's just no point. Some people do. My grandmother would have, but I don't. So you can see here, I've used the same thread for the H and this top bit, the ARE, and then I've finished it, and then I've done a new thread here and then a new thread here, because if you're jumping from here to here or here to here, you're going to waste loads of thread and you won't have enough. So there you go, there's your H and your R. So then just quickly, once you've finished the bit that you're doing and you want to tie it off, or your bit of thread has come to an end, all you have to do is turn it over and do in the back 1 or 2 small stitches to make a knot. Just go over and over the same bit like that, and then cut. Remember to cut quite short, otherwise if you've got hanging tails, you'll get knots. So yeah, that's the first bit of the backstitch. The only challenging thing for the backstitch will be that there are some small delicate bits, for example, these tinier swirls or some of the writing. So for those bits, I would just say go quite slowly and use small stitches. You know, when you're doing this middle border, your stitches can be longer, but when you've got small curvy lines, you just want to use as small stitches as you can to make it more accurate. So the next stitch I'm going to show you is the whipped backstitch. The whipped backstitch, as you may be able to tell, is basically the backstitch but a bit more, and you can use it with either one colour thread, so it makes a really bold strong line, so like the outline of the hair here or this outside border here, or you can use it with 2 different colour threads, which makes it stripy. So again, I choose the bit that I want to do. I am going to show you the outline of the hair. Things apart. Make a knot. And then, as you will know from having watched the sampler video or just through your own knowledge, to do whipped backstitch, you have to start with a line of backstitch. I'm going to show you what is probably the most fiddly bit of the whole kit, which are the toes of the hair. Claws. So when you're going over with your first line of backstitch, you want to remember to do small little stitches. If you just do big long stitches down the toes, it's going to be much harder to whip. So just be super careful when you're doing this. Really take your time and do small little stitches all around the toes. So once you've done the outline of the bit that you're doing, you want to come back up in the same coloured thread, pull it through, and then you want to get your needle and go through like this. The thing to remember is to just always go in the same direction, so either from in to out or out to in, and you just pull your needle through and it kind of closes up the gaps in between the stitches. And then when you get to the toes, you just want to really carefully pull your needle through like that, making sure not to snag anything else. So once you get to the end of one toe, finish your stitch and then start again here, because you've reached the end of that line. So right to the end and then finish it like that. This, I would recommend doing this with a good light. So up from here, down like that. Always keeping in the same direction. And then if this bit's too fiddly or you keep getting knots or it's just annoying you too much, then just leave the feet as backstitch and literally no one will be able to see it. The next stitch that I'm going to show you is chain stitch, which I use here for the stem of these harebells and also these orange squares here. With chain stitch, you just start at the beginning of the line if you want to. Pull it all the way through, hold this, or you don't have to hold it, just make sure that it's not in your way, and then go back down there where you came up, and then pull your needle through here, making a loop, and that's your first chain link. And then you just do the same thing, so needle down through there, up, and pull. There's nothing really important to remember with chain stitch apart from you have to make sure that when you pull your needle up, it's going clean through the loop. If you snag your needle, then you'll get a knot. So when you come to the end of a bit you're doing like this, just bring your needle down like that to secure it, and then up. Make sure, this sometimes happens in chain stitch, is your threads get kind of a bit knotted like that at the end. Always make sure to separate them, otherwise it will lead to worse knots. So the last stitch is satin stitch, which is used for filling in shapes. So for this piece, I use satin stitch for the big H, for the circle, for filling in the flowers, the harebells, and for these border motifs. So for any shape that you're doing that has got a long bit and a short bit, so triangles, circles, anything, you want to start at your longest stitch. So for this triangle, it would be down the middle, and you want to always go in the same direction. So I wouldn't do a stitch now coming out here. You want to keep going up to down. So remember, always sew on the outside of the black line instead of on the inside, because otherwise you'll see the black line. For the H as well, I just go all the way up, then a little line across, then all the way up again. And for the little dots here and the circles, you literally only need 2 or 3 stitches and then it will be done. So that, I think, is everything. Hopefully that's quite straightforward to follow. If you've got any questions, just message me and I'll help you.